A health savings account can be one of your most valuable accounts in retirement, but unfortunately nearly 90% of HSA owners make one of the common mistakes that we're going to discuss in today's video, and by doing so leave a lot of value on the table. Well, the good news is the mistakes that we're going to discuss are easy to fix, and I'll show you how. Now, before getting into each of these mistakes, let's touch on why an HSA is so tax advantaged in the first place. Effectively, the money you put into this account completely avoids the American tax system. The reason for this is because you get a tax deduction on anything that you contribute, you grow that money tax-free, and then any money withdrawn and used for qualified medical expenses can be withdrawn tax-free as well. It's like you're able to combine the best parts of both a traditional IRA as well as a Roth IRA. But here's the problem. Most people don't treat this account like the tax advantage account that it is. For instance, would you take an account like your Roth IRA, another powerful tax-free account, and invest it all in cash? That would seem like a crazy idea to many. After all, we want those tax-free dollars to continue to grow for your benefit. And yet, this is exactly what 88% of HSA owners do. They contribute to their HSA and then invest those funds fully into cash. Now, there are two related problems this creates. Not only are you not growing those tax-free dollars, but now inflation is actually devaluing the dollars you're saving in that HSA. And even if you are investing in a money market account that helps keep pace with normal inflation, keep in mind that we only care about one type of inflation with your HSA, and that's medical care inflation. And as of the past few decades, this has been rising at double the rate of normal inflation. Now, many of you might be keeping your HSA in cash because you don't know when unexpected healthcare expenses may arise. And this seems like a valid objection on the surface, but one that we'll meet here when we talk about mistake number 4. The point here being, though, if you are leaving your HSA invested in cash, you are leaving a lot of money on the table, not only in the next few years, but over the long term. The second mistake I see is another extremely prevalent one. In contributing to your HSA on an annual basis, many are leaving money on the table by under-contributing. On the screen, you'll see the 2023 contribution limits. Now, note there is a $1,000 add-on if you're over the age of 55. Now, where many make a mistake is they have only one HSA for both spouses. Now, this is completely all right to do. Both spouses can use that one HSA in the same capacity, but when this happens, you are only eligible for one of the over 55 add-on contributions. And so here's a trick around this. And remember, when you're married, it doesn't matter who the HSA owner is. Both spouses can use that HSA for medical expenses. And so I would urge you to open up a secondary HSA in your spouse's name. This gives you the ability to make that extra $1,000 contribution for both of you, thus allowing that max contribution to grow. Max contribution leads to maximum tax deductions here as well. Too often I see people missing out on that extra $1,000 contribution because they only have that one HSA rather than splitting into two HSAs. Mistake number 3 is one that has become completely optional in recent years as the HSA market has grown substantially. Too many HSA providers still charge clients unnecessary fees that simply eat away at your wealth with no added benefit. Fees generally come in two forms. You have maintenance and account fees that the HSA provider will charge simply for holding and maintaining that account, and then you have investment fees for the underlying investments within that HSA. Now, certain HSAs will only give you a certain menu of options, and so you may be restricted in terms of the options you have and thus be forced into some of those higher cost options. As you can see with the chart on the screen, it's not uncommon to see certain HSA providers charge an all-in fee over 1%. And it's a mistake to go with these HSA providers because, well, you don't need to. Since the HSA market has grown, there are some fantastic no-cost providers that are now available to you. Now, note that I do not receive any benefit from recommending Lively, but this is one of the new providers in recent years that went away with fees altogether for its HSA clients. And there are only optional fees that you can choose or choose not to have. Now, I know many investors that have HSAs through work. Know that often there is the ability to roll those funds outside of your company plan. And it might be worth looking into if your HSA charges those unnecessary fees. Then finally, the biggest mistake I see retirees make is missing out on the use of a powerful HSA loophole that we call the receipt loophole. Here's how this works. From the time that you open up and you start an HSA, any qualified medical expense thereafter can be reimbursed at any time. For instance, I could theoretically incur a medical expense this year. pay that expense out of pocket and keep the receipt. Let's say that's a $4,000 expense. Then sometime down the road, say 10 years from now, I can take that $4,000 out of my HSA completely tax-free because I'm reimbursing myself from the previous expense 10 years ago. Now again, you want to keep receipts in order for this to work, but this is completely possible and is completely within the rules of the HSA. Now, why is this so powerful? We're going to cover a few different reasons, but for one, you can start saving receipts that currently eclipse the value of your HSA. Let's say you just recently learned about an HSA and you've made 1 year worth of contributions and you just incurred a medical expense that is greater than what you contributed to that HSA. Well, fully emptying out your HSA may not be the best idea. You may want to keep value within that HSA so it can continue to grow. So once your HSA has grown larger down the road, you can then recoup the value of the receipts that you couldn't have used when your HSA was smaller, but now that it's much larger, you can recoup relatively easily. Second, we know that over time, certain investments will provide significantly more growth than others. Historically, stocks have provided 3.5 times more growth after inflation than bonds, and over 20 times more growth than cash. Now, many are worried about investing in their HSA because what if an unexpected expense happens during a market downturn and you need to pull from that HSA? Well, this is really only a valid argument if your HSA is your emergency fund. With many families, I notice they have an emergency fund and they still keep most of their HSA in cash. Now, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's as if you're doubling up on your emergency fund. It'd be somewhat similar to me recommending that you have an emergency fund in each of your accounts just to be safe. Instead, have one cash buffer and preferably not in your HSA because you want to keep your HSA invested. Now with this, the receipt loophole offers you the ability to avoid taking funds out of your HSA in less than opportune times. For instance, let's say that you have atrocious luck. You have your HSA invested 100% into stocks at the market low in 2009, you incur a medical expense. The last thing that you want to do is take from your HSA when it's likely cut in half. So instead, you pay that expense out of your emergency fund, let the market have time to recover, and then once it does, you reimburse that emergency fund from your HSA. This way, you ensure you don't take from your HSA at poor times. In most situations, you will not have this bad of luck. And so in most situations, that money will have grown by the time that you're able to reimburse. Furthermore, someone can use this receipt loophole even more strategically. Take someone who will be on Affordable Care Act insurance prior to 65. Now, the amount that you pay for Affordable Care Act insurance is directly tied to the income that you show. If you show too much income, you could be paying more than $1,000 per month per person. If you show extremely low income, you could be paying next to nothing for health insurance. Well, here's a proactive strategy. Open up an HSA account as soon as possible and start saving all of your receipts for early retirement. HSA and Roth withdrawals both are exempt from counting against you in terms of ACA's reported income. Theoretically, someone can save quite a bit in receipts and give themselves a sizable advantage in earning a significant subsidy right at the beginning of their retirement, thus translating into some massive healthcare savings. And so it's pretty easy to see how fixing some of these really simple but common mistakes can lead to a doubling and a tripling of your HSA in relatively short order. If we're able to contribute more to our HSA, able to cut down on expenses, and able to grow that HSA at a greater capacity, well then you're soon going to see that HSA grow at a quite rapid pace. And this is what can be fascinating about retirement planning. Sometimes improving your situation isn't about implementing some complicated strategy, but rather just fixing some simple and avoidable mistakes. Now, if you gain value from this video, you're going to like this video right here, where I talk about 4 mistakes I frequently see from retirees with a taxable account. Unfortunately, many misunderstand something we call the capital gain matrix and end up leaving wealth on the table because of it. Click on this video right here to learn more, and always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan.